Hey guys, Brian Castro here from Better Chess Trading. Happy New Year! Welcome to 2019. And in this first video of 2019, I'm going to be continuing the Climbing the Ladder series, actually playing someone rated 1690 on the Internet Chess Club. But something curious about it, he's also listed as a FIDE master. Let's see, let's see if he plays like one. Okay, so I was looking for a game for the Climbing the Ladder series and ended up being challenged by FIDE Master um, with an internet chess rating of 1691. So that's a little odd, and I'm not sure quite what's happening. But let's just get to the game. We're going to try our best. I've actually played this individual before. I don't remember him being a FIDE Master, so I'm a little confused there, but I guess I shouldn't let it distract me. So here we are playing a kind of a Gruenfeld setup, and he is now pinning my knight. So how should I respond? Naturally, I kind of want to play c4 here, and one reason he may be playing this is to prepare this. So my other usual move here would be to play b4. But with his knight over, or his bishop here, wonder if I could play c4 with the idea of playing queen to b3 at some point. So that would be the idea there. Or I could just ignore this. I don't think I need to play h3. I think we would just play bishop to f5 or something like that. Um, or I can also unpin with bishop to e2, maybe play a little bit more conservatively, and then castle. So let me just think for a moment what I want to do here. So my candidate moves are b4, c4, bishop to e2, and I guess I would have to throw in h3, but I'm not really too worried about the pin right now. Um, c4 would come eventually in any case, but it also gives me this idea here of playing um, queen to b3. And it might also provoke something like b6 because he might be thinking about that too. So we're still in the opening phases. We've only played 4 moves, but this is a little bit of a deviation from what I usually play here. So well, let's look at c4. Now, what if he plays c5 here? Because now, then I think I might just have queen to b3 attacking this pawn. So that's possible. And then that would unpin this knight. Now with b4, he can't play really c5 at that point, but then I'm no longer going to have this queen to b3 move. Not that I need to get that in necessarily, but it's something that I typically play here to prevent this. I think c4 is a little more thematic, I guess you could say. So let's see how that goes. By the way, Happy New Year. My first video of 2019, and looking forward to a nice year, both in life and in chess. And I also wish you the best with your chess this year. So, usually, I think the FIDE Master title is given to players who have, I think, a FIDE rating of 2300 and above and have that rating for a certain number of games. I know with the International Master and Grandmaster titles, you need to have a certain rating, but you also need to have certain norms. So I'm a little, not that he can't be a FIDE Master, but I guess I'm just a little confused because of his low Internet Chess Club rating. Maybe that's just how strong the Internet Chess Club is. Just kidding. But okay, he plays c3 here, defending this pawn on d5. And so let's take a look. Queen to b3, of course, pops into my mind. And would that benefit me as opposed to just playing b4, which is what I typically play here, um, kind of foregoing this pawn. So queen to b3, he can respond in a few ways. He could actually play queen to b6. Um, he can also just play b6, in which case um, c takes d5, c takes d5, bishop to b5 check might be a little interesting, but I'm not really, because my knight is not on c3, it doesn't really necessarily, I can't really take advantage of that. So I think here I'm going to go back to playing b5 or b4, looking to expand on the queen side. And uh, what b4 does is it prevents him from playing a later c5, but also I can play a4 and then b5 at some point, or a5, and usually gives me a nice game here. Um, I'm going to follow it up. Sometimes I follow it up with moves like bishop to b2 to cover this diagonal as well. Okay, my opponent plays knight to f6, and um, pretty straightforward. Developing, and he's looking probably to castle soon. And I think I need to just go with my, well, a couple things here. I have to look to see if knight to e4 is a threat, because of course knight takes e4, and then d takes e4 is of course attacking the pinned knight. But I think even at that, I could play bishop to b2, and then if he plays knight to e4, I could even play bishop to e2. Or I can play something like queen to c2, getting out of the pin altogether. So that is another option. So what I'm trying to avoid here is playing bishop to e2, and then he takes on c4 and makes me waste a tempo. That's why I'm not moving this bishop yet. But standard move here is bishop to b2, covering this in case he wants to play e5 at some point. Which he probably wouldn't do until he castled and maybe played rook to e8, or his knight here to d7. Okay, black castles, and what can we do now here? I can play a4. So some ideas I have are a4 to just keep this expansion here on the king side. But now might be a good time to start thinking about um, developing my king side and getting castled. But I might like to come up with a way to compel him to capture on c4. Of course, that would be helpful now, wouldn't it? Um, but again, there's a lot of good moves here. I think I can play a4. Okay, let's look at a4, and then d takes, then bishop takes. Not a big deal there. A4, knight to e4, and again, from there, I think I can just play either bishop to e2 or queen to c2 without any problems. The idea being that if he takes on d2, I can always take back with the knight, and if he takes here on f3, I can take here with the knight as well. Um, I do want to be a little careful. Something like queen to c2, bishop to f5 might not be as good. But I could play something like queen to b3 even, like I mentioned before, um, with the ideas of maybe playing b5 at some point. So the typical, or the kind of the game plan that's kind of lending itself here is that white is going to be doing his offense on the queen side, and then black is going to try to break in the center with e5 and maybe later f5, like in the King's Indian, depending on the situation. And of course, we're trying, these central squares are ones that we are always sort of in a battle for. Okay. Uh, let's see here. What if he plays e5 now? I think I'm secure there. Move like queen to b3 is nice too because I would like to cover this bishop in case there's some openings here. Um, I'm just trying to see, can he prevent? He might want to play b5, which then forces me to trade here with no real advantage to either side. Although, if he plays b5 here, like let's say I play queen to b3 and he plays b5, I can play c takes d5, and if he takes back with the pawn, then this pawn is hanging. So that would be one reason. Queen to b3 would be fine. And my whole point there is that can I delay a4 and just move my queen out of the way? Um, the only thing with queen to b3 then is then he can maybe do something like bishop to e6, which is not a bad move either. Um, you know what? I'm going to hold off on the queen move. I'm going to play a4. The reason why I want to see if he has any other plans here. A4 is a useful move in any case in this particular position, and we'll see what he does. And now even I'm starting to threaten things like maybe c5 to close off, not to close off, but to fix this pawn and then prepare to play b5 at some point. Let's take a look here. What else is happening in this position? So, what are Black's ideas here? Black, I think, would like to play rook to e8 and then play e5 to kind of break in here. Um, right, knight to e4 is also a nice little strong point for him that we can maybe expect at some point. And then because of my pawns here, you might want to play a5 to kind of try to break this up. Or actually b5, like we mentioned earlier. Although in this case, again, b5 would just lose a pawn, say with a takes b5. And then no matter how he takes back, I think he's losing a pawn. So, or if he goes b5, a takes b5, he could actually take here on c4 first. And then, after I take back on b5, which I think, does that lose a, no, that would be equal. Although, if you were to play, say, b5, and I take a takes b5, okay, so he's playing a6 here. Well, this is interesting. Is there any way I can take advantage of, these dark squares? Is the first thing I'm thinking off the top of my head. Something like a5 is an idea, with the idea of bringing my knight, say, to c5, attacking this pawn. Of course, unpinning this knight might be nice, because now e5 is a viable square if I can get a knight there um, as well. Is he planning on playing b5? So if I play a5, b5 might not be as attractive because I can now take en passant, and then this a6 pawn becomes slightly weak. Similarly, right now he can't play b5 again because he loses a pawn because I go a takes b5, and then the a pawn is actually pinned to this rook. So, what does that mean for us? So a5 is definitely interesting, but I want to come up with a few alternatives. There's still tension here in this pawn. So, so bishop to e2 might be. So bishop to e2 might be a nice preparatory move because then this knight is protected. I could also think about knight to e5, and also I can think about moving this knight again to b3 and then to say c5. So bishop to e2 is definitely something that's interesting. Um, and what happens bishop to e2 and then d takes c4? At that point, I might actually just play bishop takes c4 anyway, because the bishop would be very nice on this diagonal. So let's say bishop to e2, d takes c4, bishop takes c4, and then he goes b5. Well, again, I just have a takes b5, and then if he plays c takes b5, I can actually play bishop takes b5 because the a pawn would be pinned. So bishop to e2 I think is okay, with the idea of castling, which is something I'd like to think about doing as well. Um, Bishop to e2. What if he just plays b6? Kind of lining up these pawns here. I guess I'm wondering if I should play a5 first to kind of fix, to protect this square here. Bishop to e2, b6. Is there a problem with that? Well, then at that point, knight to e5 becomes attractive. You would probably trade off bishops. Um, Not sure yet. Even if he plays b6, I don't think I have to worry too much quite yet because um, I can play bishop to e2, b6, and then I could still play a5 after playing knight to b3. So I think bishop to e2 is the move here. I have to be a little mindful of my clock. I'm using a lot of clock here thinking about these moves, but I guess thinking about the moves is important, but I need to make sure that I have some time later for later in the game. Let me know in the comments too what your goals are this year in terms of your chess improvement. What are you looking? Do you have specific goals that you're trying to improve? I know I did a poll at the end of last year, and I want to thank those of you who responded to it. Uh, and so I'm going to be thinking about some of the responses there. A lot of you want to improve your thought process. A couple of you mentioned you want to improve your end game. I think everyone wants to improve their tactics, and um, so we'll see what we can do to help you in terms of videos on this channel. But let me know what you think in the comments in terms of what you want to, uh, get better at. And I try to sometimes avoid saying that I want to reach a certain rating. I'd rather look at it more. Your rating is sort of the result of improving your, tactics, your opening, your middle game, your end game. So, what is it in your chess game that you're trying to improve this year? Let me know in the comments. Okay, my opponent just made his move, which is e6, which is very interesting. So now this light square bishop is, I don't know, he is not in a good way here, I guess you could say. But I don't know if there's a way I necessarily trap it. I don't know if I necessarily want to trade off my light square bishop for him. Um, I kind of like e5 here, but or knight to e5, but I can even go back to my other plans now of playing a5 and then knight to b3. He's kind of closed off. He's not quite sure what he's getting at here. Um, I could just castle as well. But I was thinking, is there a way to trap him? Not really trap him because he would just exchange, but um, I don't know if that lets him off the hook too easily. So that's something, this knight to e5 move is something we might consider a little bit later. Now, I could consider something like h3 just to see what he would do. If he plays bishop to f5, then g4, bishop to e4, and then, maybe I can, well, not right away. He'd be pinning my knight to the rook, but just to see what he would do. Putting on an f5 just seems. I'm not sure what I think about that. I might ignore it and just move on with my ideas, which would be to play f5 or knight to b3. So I'm going to, well, let's see. See, the problem with knight to b3 right away, too, again, he takes, and then I have to take with the bishop, and now my knight is still pinned. Should I castle, just give him another move to think about it? Or should I play h3? That is the question. A5 is okay, too. So knight to b3 I'm not going to play, but I am thinking now maybe yeah, either castling h3 or a5. So if I castle, what does my opponent have here? Is c5 an option too? Just lock that off and then prepare some type of b5 push. Not sure. I think, I think I'm going to castle because I feel like if I play a5, then b6, a takes b6, and then queen takes b6 starts to get some counterplay while my queen is still, or while my king is still um, on this diagonal and in the center. So let me just castle first. And this is not a game to model the proper time management. I've played the opening moves very slowly and deliberately because of this somewhat odd opening choice. So what Black did here, by the way, is put the bishop outside of the pawn chain. So even though it's technically what they call a bad bishop, because these pawns are blocking the light squares, it's still active. And I think he can exchange it off at some point. So okay, well he made a move here. Knight b to d7. So he's stopping this knight to e5 move. Um, and now I think I do want to play a5 to prevent his knight moving there. Um, but I have to be able to follow up for b6. So a5, b6, and I'm going to take it. And then if he plays knight takes, or knight to b6, or knight takes b6, then what? The other idea would be c5 actually might be a little more attractive, actually now in this position, because if b6, then I have an open c file. I guess it just depends. I think I can go either way. I think I'm going to go a5 because my rook's already on the a file. So if he wants to open it up, that is to my advantage. Okay. So here with this rook move, rook to c8, he's indicating that maybe he wants to push c5, or he's preventing me from pushing b5. Um, so one idea I have, well, one idea would be to go ahead and play knight to b3 here, and then with the idea of playing knight to c5, and then let's say, for example, he takes on c5. I take back with the b pawn, and then we have this half open file, although a5 would be weak there. What other options do we have? Can I play b5 right now? I don't think it looks quite as good. Well, I would then get, so b5, a takes b5, or c takes b5, c takes b5. Bishop takes b5, but then this rook has this open file, so I don't think we're going to do that quite yet. Okay, I think I'd like to figure out what this bishop is doing. So with that in mind, I might play h3. Okay, part of this, I'm a little low on time, guys, so I want to figure out what he's going to do. Okay, he's taking here, and now I think I'm going to take back with the bishop here. So this leaves this knight here to defend here, and because now this prevents his knight from coming into e4. I could even think about making my own e4 advance here. But now he could think about playing e5 or e5 at some point. Knight to b3 is still an option, but I need to cover this first. So maybe queen to a4, queen to b3, and queen to c2 are all ideas that have different merits to it. Queen to a4 prevents b6 because I'm attacking a6 after a takes b6. Also would protect b4 if he were to do that. And then queen to b3 adds another defender here, as does queen to c2. Queen to c2 also covers the e4 square. You know what? I'm going to play queen to b3, and my reasoning is that if he ever opens this up, or if he ever plays e5, then I can get a some type of it's possible to get some action going on this diagonal. And actually, I think e4 might be an interesting move as well. e4 looking to open up there. So maybe putting a rook on the e file might be good, or putting this rook on the c file. I think he's got to play e5 if he wants to have any type of counterplay, and maybe queen to c7 was supporting that. But I think I should be thinking about playing e4 as well here. Okay, again, if he plays e5 right now, it's not as good because I can take on d5. Okay. Playing some interesting moves here. I think he's looking to maybe maneuver this knight over. I'm not sure. But e4 definitely looks like a possibility here. Maybe getting some play down the e file. But then that loses the support of the d4 pawn. This is going to become isolated. So many things to think about, guys. Okay, here, now that this knight is moved, I'm even thinking of c takes d5, because if e takes d5, he no longer will have that e4 break, and then I can bring my rook over here to the c file, and start thinking about some action over there. B5 is always something I need to think about as well. B5, A takes B5, C takes B5, C takes B5, Queen takes B5 is something to think about. You know what I'm going to do here though is I'm running low on time. I'm going to bring my rook here to the C file so that B5 is another possibility. I'm going to hold off on E4 just because uh, it will start to bring this bishop to life if I lose support of this D4 pawn. B5 is definitely a possibility right now because I'm threatening if I open up the okay, so he has to move his queen off of the file there, which makes a lot of sense. Um, let's see. Well, now B5 looks good as well. B5, A takes B5, C takes B5, C takes B5, Queen takes B5, attacking this knight. And then if this knight moves, you know what? He's in a little bit of. I think B5 could be a good move here because I also have bishop to A3 attacking this rook later. So I'm going to play it under 3 minutes, guys. So I'm going to be. Maybe I should talk less and play a little bit quicker. So we're going to see how this plays out here. I do have a 5 second increment. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier. It was a 30-minute with 5 second increment game. So I'm not sure how that's going to, that should help. Okay, he's going to take here, and then I'm going to take here. Okay, so this, I believe, is favorable for me. Okay, so he's going to play his knight to um, d6 here, looking maybe to play it here. What I can do now is take on a6, and after he takes back with the b pawn, take the queen, and then pin this rook here, or pin this knight right here. Okay, so taking here on a6, he should take back with the pawn, and then I'm going to take his queen, and now pin this knight, and he can't protect it. So that should, does that win a piece? It might win a piece. I'll show you that after the game, but I just had to play it quickly. Okay, his position's kind of falling apart here. He might try to counterattack this pawn, for example. Doesn't really have any entry points because my knight is covering b3, my bishops are covering b4 and b2. And okay, he's playing his knight there. So he's sacrificing the exchange, and I think I need to take it. I mean, that's the whole reason I played this move, right? So let's go ahead and take that. Okay, and now I think my knight has to get to greener pastures. Where do I want to put it? I would like to get it up to c5. So let's go ahead and do that. And notice if he takes here on d5, of course, I can take there too. If I could get the c5, exchange off some pieces, okay? So right now I'm ahead by an exchange, and hopefully, hopefully I won't give it back at all. So, uh, think we're in pretty good shape, but I do need to play quickly. Idea here is if he wants to exchange, he's going to give me a pass pawn on c5. Also have ideas of bringing this bishop down to e2, attacking along here. And this is a case where being ahead in material, I can think about trading down. Okay, he's attacking my pawn here, but he is going to need to trade with me, I think. And I'm actually okay giving back a little material. Okay. And here, let's see here. Let's bring. I'm going to go ahead and attack. We'll play bishop to e2, covering the b5 square here. So where the adrenaline starts to pump. I don't play a lot of blitz anymore, and we could talk about why in the future. I don't know if it's great for my development. And so I'm not used to playing super quickly, but I will try my best. And it's definitely exciting though. Of course, coffee helps too. If I get a chance, I can pin this bishop. Try to win it if he. Depending on what he does here. So the other idea is here pinning this bishop. Okay, looks like he's going to try to advance those guys. I mean, that's fine. We can. Can I pin this bishop and somehow get. Rook to b1 with the idea of rook to a4. In the meantime, he might play. Because his knight, it's going to take him 2 moves to get there. Let's see. Rook to b1, e5. Does he just lose that? I could always swing back and take that pawn later, so I don't need to rush right away. I'm expecting d4, and I can just go ahead and take there. Okay, so here, this is interesting. Um, I think I can go ahead and win this bishop because it's pinned, and he can't go back to protect it with the bishop. So what started out as a very slow maneuvering game has become kind of a tactical game. So I think I just win this bishop outright. I mean, he can take this pawn, but then he's going to lose his rook with check. So he kind of got himself into a little bit of trouble. Okay. So I'm going to take here. I don't think he has any. Just want to make sure I'm not going to get forked here. Yeah, I think I could just win this. And next I'm going to go after this pawn. Okay, I'm up a whole rook, guys. Should be pretty straightforward, but I do have to play quickly. I've got a whole rook for a pawn. Okay, he's bringing his king in, and I'm going to go ahead and try to win this pawn. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and take it. So again, I had two attackers. My bishop is protected. Okay, he's going to advance here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I'm going to take it. And I have enough time to bring my king over to stop it. So here, this is a very easily winning position, but we just want to make sure we cap it off as quickly as possible. I'm going to bring my king over to stop it here. I could even sacrifice my bishop on this pawn here because it's still clearly winning, and then I could just advance my pawn to promote it. Okay. You know what? Let's just go ahead and stop it right there. Notice he can't, if he moves his knight, I just take his pawn. And I don't think there's no, well, if he wants to, he can sacrifice trade these two pawns. So he can, okay. So here, I am going to go ahead and do this. Actually, he can't take this pawn because my rook is covering. So I'm going to take this pawn. Okay. He's going to trade these two pawns, which actually that's okay as well. Okay. And let's just go here. I am low on time, so I do have to be careful. Okay. So let's just bring my bishop over here. I gotta make sure I don't get forked. That's always a danger. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and take this knight and just eliminate any danger to my position. Okay, so I gave back some material, and then I'm gonna win these pawns over here. Okay, got a little nervous there with the clock running down. This is very easy, but let's see if he lets me finish it. Um, I'm just going to move my bishop over here, move my king up. Okay, and I'm going to just cut him off here with my bishop. And now he cannot stop me from promoting. So I'm just going to bring this pawn up this way. Okay, and he resigned. So let's take a look at a couple of those positions. But that was kind of a fun game at the end there. Okay. Okay, let's take a look just at this was the decisive position here, and I did a little analysis and uh, looked at what could have been played. And first, let me show you what my opponent here played knight to d6. And so this is a mistake, as we saw in the game. We'll get back to that in a second. What he should have probably played, and I looked at this a little bit with a chess engine as well as did some analysis on my own, was played here, knight e to f6. And what that does is it gives this rook some freedom. And what I could have played here again was I could have taken here, and then after he takes back, develop this bishop with bishop to a3, and then after he trades queens, for example, knight to b3, then this square looks very nice, and I think at this point I have a nice, what we would say, call a positional advantage. Okay, so that is maybe the best play for black, but I still think white already has an advantage in the game. Let's go back a few moves. Okay, let's go back to this position. So as we saw in the game, black plays knight to d6, and this is where I saw this possibility. Okay, and so played bishop takes a6, bishop takes a6, and then during the game I actually took on b8. Okay, and here black could have improved a little bit by taking here first with check. And then after I take back, taking with the rook. And then I no longer have that tactic. But the position is still pretty good for white, in my opinion. I could still play bishop to a3, attacking this knight here, and at some point later use the c5 square and maybe even the b6 square for my own knight. So here in this position, white has maybe just a slight advantage, but it's not too bad for black. And that advantage would mainly be because of the piece activity. But I guess you could argue that it's about equal for both sides at this point. However, as you could see from the clocks, we were low on time, so that is part of the issue there. Okay, instead my opponent played rook takes, and I played the best move, which is to pin this knight. And my opponent gave up the exchange, and then as we saw there, and as you saw, I went on to win the game. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit the like button. And if you're new to this channel, consider subscribing. Better Chess Training is about helping you to get better at chess. And I give training tips, I talk through my games, give analysis of master games and other videos with the goal of helping you to improve. So consider subscribing, and I hope to see you in a future video.